Educational blindness. So I'm not going to waste your time, guys. This is one of the biggest problems beginners face. And if you don't know what educational blindness is, don't worry, because I will explain it in this video. But if it's not solved, it can literally stop you from learning a language. Yeah, just trust me on that one. I will explain how it works. But by the end of this video, you will understand what educational blindness is and how to beat it as well. And this will put you ahead of probably at least 99% of people, because I know 99% of language learners they don't actually learn the language they're set out to learn. And I think this is one of the biggest reasons why. So if you do like this kind of educational content on language learning, guys, definitely hit the subscribe button. It does give me dopamine seeing the number go up. But yeah, with that said, let's go. So what is educational blindness? Educational blindness can apply to anything, not just language learning, but it basically means not knowing the steps required to make progress in something. So because you're at A, for example, A is obviously you don't know how to do something, B is you do know how to do something. Because you're at the stage where you don't know how to do something, you also don't know what it takes to become B, basically. You don't know what you need to do to basically learn a language and be able to speak that language. So this can obviously apply with anything, but we're going to talk about it with language learning. So what happens with a lot of people when they're learning a language as a beginner, and this might resonate with you, is say you're learning French, for example, you might learn colors in French, basic greetings, numbers, like a few things here and there, maybe some animals, and then you kind of get stuck. And because you don't know what you actually need to learn to become proficient at French, for example, and this is called educational blindness, and I put a big cloud over the kind of A to B line to show the problem. And this is a real problem because people get stuck, and then what happens with educational blindness is it does lead to feelings of frustration and kind of extreme anxiety. A lot of people do worry if, you get that feeling when you're like learning a language and like, is this actually gonna work? Am I actually gonna be able to speak a language at the end of all this, or am I just putting my time into nothing? And yeah, that's a very common feeling. I feel that. Well, I have felt that. I don't feel it as much anymore because I've fully learned a language. But yeah, it is definitely a real feeling. And I'm going to talk about how to kind of beat this educational blindness. And yeah, so the solution overall is to implement structure. So if the problem is that we don't know what to do to become proficient at something, the solution is to implement something that shows us what to do. And this is called structure. So structure is basically something a beginner can follow along logically to know which topics within a language to study. So anything that you can look at that kind of has a list of things to study that you can just follow along, and once you've done them all, you're at least knowing a lot more of the language, if not the whole language. This is kind of what we want, and this, I'm going to explain how to actually use this, don't worry. But the reason having a structure in language learning is so important is because when you don't know what to do and you don't have a structure, you can't really get anywhere because you just don't know what to learn. You're just picking topics willy-nilly. But if you do have a structure to follow, you can literally just look up the next things in the structure. And now by structure, I just mean like kind of an order of things to do. But of course, because you've never learned a language before, you don't know what, subject pronouns are. You don't know what cases. You can't really design your own order for things you're going to learn within a language. So you kind of need someone to tell you. Obviously, within a language, there's topics, right? Like there's different word types, like nouns, verbs. There's different tenses. There's case. There's all these kind of, subtopics within a language. So the best things I've found a beginner can follow as a kind of guide or structure is either a website guide or a YouTube playlist. So I'm going to show you some examples. This is 2 screenshots I've used a lot because it's for a website I'm currently using to learn Russian. But as you can see, on the left here, you've got all of the not all of them, but a bunch of subtopics within a language. So they've got obviously this is the very start, so alphabet, numbers, basic phrases. But if you look down here, there's different vocab, like question words, days, months, family, all that kind of thing. And this website, there's way more to it than that. This is just 2 screenshots that I could fit on the page. You can basically go through and it explains everything kind of in each of those topics. And those topics are a very large part of the language. Obviously, you can't just use this website. You need to, you need to consume content like reading books, watching TV, and looking at other things as well. But this is a really, really good start. So I'd highly recommend if you can look up complete guide and then whatever language you're learning, and you might have to go through a few websites, try and find something like this that has all this and then save it into a folder. I have where is it? I have a languages folder with all any languages I'm studying in there. So Russian has its own folder. I'd highly recommend you save it to a Google folder like that so you don't lose it. Yeah, definitely be organized. But this is super, super good. Have one of these. The other alternative is a YouTube playlist, and honestly, you can and probably should have both. So you could literally look up on YouTube, complete guide to learning whatever, and you'll find a playlist by any kind of YouTuber. It might be multiple YouTubers if someone's put together. Again, you might have to go through a few just to find one that kind of looks good. And obviously, because the nature of looking for a guide is that you don't know what exactly you need to be learning. So yeah, don't worry about like giving it the full like kind of x-ray to make sure it's good. Just find something that's pretty decent. You can always find more than one thing. And as you can see, you can basically just go through this playlist one lesson at a time. Obviously, going through it back to back and doing nothing else is probably going to go in one ear and out the other, because you need to implement stuff, you need to read to kind of make sense of all these things. But yeah, this is an example of a playlist that you could literally follow through, and I'd highly recommend people do that as well. So yeah, if you have any questions, guys, comment them down below. The bottom line is following a structure does allow peace of mind to beginners who stress about what is and isn't useful to learning a language, because it's very, very logical. As you can see, you can just kind of follow through. So definitely hit the subscribe button, guys. I've got links to my website and Discord in the description. Don't be afraid to comment any questions or anything like that. And have a good one.